Welcome back to our discussion of US President Obama's foreign policy and how it's likely to shape up. Will his promised change be simply cosmetic? I'm joined by Ambassador Peter Galbraith, a former US diplomat who currently focuses his research on Iraq and other Middle Eastern countries, as well as the Balkans and Asia, at the Center for Arms Control and Non-Proliferation. He's joining us from Boston. Here in Washington, D.C., Christian Brose, who is a senior editor at the influential Foreign Policy magazine. He was a speechwriter for former Secretaries of State Colin Powell and Condoleezza Rice. Now, let's get back to that question. Perhaps, Christian, I can put this to you, what our caller from London had asked, Sayed, about Afghanistan. I'll add to it a question from our live station chat room from Hamid, who's written, why does Obama think that sending an extra 30,000 soldiers to Afghanistan will solve their problems when it's clear that the Afghan problem can be solved with some sort of economic or commercial or commerce help, which is exactly what Sayed said. Of course, Afghanistan was high on the agenda for President Bush straight after 2001, the attacks of 2001 and September the 11th, and then seemed to drop off the radar for a long time.
I think that's right. I think that the administration, of course, would say that they were focusing on both at the same time, but it's, I think, pretty hard to argue that with the focus on Iraq, the efforts turned, the resources turned, and that's what the bulk of the focus became. With regard to the 30,000 more troops to Afghanistan, I think that it's not, I don't think anyone believes that the troops alone are going to solve Afghanistan's problems. But I do think that there's the recognition, both in the Bush administration as it was leaving this policy to Obama, and Obama as he's picking it up, that more security, greater security, more security for the Afghan people is a critical component of development in that country, that you won't have economic development and you won't have political progress unless you begin to have the basics of security and stability in the country.
Just briefly, can America afford to provide economic help nowadays, considering the situation here?
Well, I think the hope for the Obama administration is that as the trend in Iraq moves toward fewer troops, less commitment of resources, that they'll be able to shift a lot of that toward Afghanistan, and that it's going to be a balancing out between those two wars that we have going on. Shuffling, exactly. But I do think that with the financial crisis, the economic problems, it's going to be very tough.
Well, Matta in Sweden has a question. Thanks for your patience. Go ahead.
Yeah, my question is to the two gentlemen.
Please.
If America is really serious about pursuing peace and justice around the world, the Palestinians shouldn't be any different from any other person. What the Jews are doing to the Palestinians is a breach of human rights. They are killing their children, they are bombing their schools, they are bombing UN compounds. Think of Zimbabwe.
Matta, I'm going to, sorry to interrupt you there, because I want to put this to Ambassador Galbraith. Of course, one of the things that happened was during that transition period, Ambassador, Barack Obama was very careful not to really get involved, not to comment on that. It was a very sensitive area. I wonder to what degree his silence during that time might hurt or hinder his efforts to try to find some kind of peace between Israelis and Palestinians now.
I think the critical thing is to focus on trying to find a peace settlement, and that is, and when you're not president, I think that it is appropriate not to be speaking out. But I think he's signaled that this is going to be a high priority, assuming he goes ahead with the appointment of George Mitchell, the former Senate Majority Leader, as the negotiator, the man who is responsible for the Good Friday agreements in Northern Ireland.
How will he be received, by the way, Ambassador? How do you think George Mitchell will stand up to the job? Of course, it's such a tricky job, that one.
Well, it is a tricky job, and it's not really going to be served by trying to sort out the rights and wrongs of the situation. I mean, the Israeli attack, obviously, it was a horrific loss of life, but it was provoked by attacks on Israel. So the important thing is to move forward, to be engaged. We know more or less what the outlines of a Middle East peace settlement are: the two-state solution, some territorial swaps, but we need to get there, and we need to get the parties, have the right set of parties in both countries that are going to be prepared to make a deal.
Might not be so easy now, of course, but let me get Mohammed on the line from Paris, who's also been waiting with a question. Mohammed?
Hello.
Hi. Go ahead, please.
Good evening to everybody. Just I wanted to know how much President Obama is free to engage in the conflict between Israel and Palestine, when his Secretary of State is Mr. Emmanuel Ramos, who is partly Israeli citizen.
I think actually the reference is to Rahm Emanuel, but actually let me do this, Mohammed. I put to Christian Brose here. Of course, we've got Hillary Clinton on the scene now, as well as George Mitchell. I mean, she'll play a crucial role being the Secretary of State. How do you feel she'll be received? I mean, she has a history, obviously, with the previous administration, the Clinton administration. In what way do you think that might help or hinder the situation when she goes in as well?
Particularly on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Look, I think she's going to be very well received. She's a huge figure. She's very popular. And
is that what it takes? That there's weight behind it. That there's some kind of
No, I mean I think that you've seen all models fail. You've seen very popular secretaries of state and presidents not be able to solve this conflict, and you've seen other lower level envoys working the problem. But I think that one of the expectations is that she will be bringing a lot of attention to it. Although I think one difference that you will see is Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, as we know, was working this very personally, and I think Secretary Clinton is going to be delegating a large amount of that work to Senator Mitchell. But of course, I think still engaging in some way to sort of manage the process without getting involved as much in the day-to-day work of it.
Okay, we've got Charles on the line from London. Charles, what would you like to ask?
Yes, the scenes which we saw from Gaza just reminds us of the Warsaw Ghetto in the Hitler time. Do you think Obama, as a friend of Israel, impressed on them not to engage in such, fruitless exercise, causing too many deaths among civilians?
Okay, Charles, let me put this to the ambassador. One thing that's generally widely held belief, certainly in parts of the world, in the Middle East in particular, is that the pro-Israel lobby in America controls really what America does as far as being so close to Israel and supporting Israel in what's considered a very unfair way against the Palestinians. To what extent do you think that Barack Obama might be also, to some degree, manacled to lobbies? He has said that I won't be, as tied to the lobbies. To what extent can he escape that kind of influence?
Well, Israel is an ally of the United States, and there's a historic relationship that Obama has embraced. And so if viewers are expecting that there's going to be a 180-degree turn here and an anti-Israeli administration, then that's just not going to happen.
Not necessarily anti-Israeli,
but
go ahead.
But if you're looking to an administration that is going to place a priority on finding peace in the Middle East, a fair and just solution, the outlines of which are very clear, and which we were very close to at the end of the Clinton administration. I think you will see that kind of effort being made. But the other point is that there are many other problems in the world, and frankly, many other injustices. And the administration is going also to be focusing on those problems and those challenges. They include, Afghanistan, Iraq, and others.
On that note, Ambassador, in fact, Barack Obama has said that he sees the situation, including Afghanistan, Iran, Pakistan, and so on, being a unified one rather than lots of separate issues, and he's going to try to approach them in a much more unified manner. In your opinion, is that a successful approach, or potentially successful approach?
Well, yes. I mean, these are interconnected issues. One of the reasons that for our failures in North Korea is that we diverted, and in fact, with progress that North Korea and Iran made on their nuclear programs, is we diverted so much of our attention and resources to Iraq. And the same point is about can be made about the resurgence of the Taliban or the nuclear threat and terrorist threat that is emanating from Pakistan. So these are all interconnected issues. I want to come back to one point that Christian Brose made about suggesting that there was going to be...
We've got 30 seconds, less than 30 seconds, so go ahead, please.
No, that there's going to be a great deal of continuity. I think there are also significant differences on Afghanistan, on Iraq, on Iran, global warming, and certainly on terrorism. Even if the Bush administration had a shift in its second term, it was frankly
Okay.
hampered by what it had done in the first term, by the reputation the president
Ambassador?
had at that stage.
I'm sorry, I have to stop you there. And Christian, there's so much more I want to ask you. We'll get you back for sure as well. Thank you for being with us. On the next show, we continue our debate on prospects for Obama's foreign policy, focusing specifically on Iran, asking, can relations between Washington and Tehran improve? We'll see you next time.